Hi, my name is Donn Felker. I'm an independent consultant, and in this Dimecast I'm going to cover how to create a basic editable list with ASP.NET MVC2. Right now we're looking at the order controller. The order controller is going to help us build up our page with the information that we would like to view. What we have is a customer. Let's navigate to the customer class. And the customer class consists of a first name, a last name, and a list of orders. Each order contains an order number and a list of line items for each order. And each line item itself contains a name, a price, and a quantity. When we render the page should look something similar to this. Here we have a bunch of text boxes, first name, last name, and then we have an order, the first order up here, and the second order down here. And what the end result we would like to aim for is, I would like to be able to edit the Bob field, first name, Jackson is the last name. I would like to change each one of the line items, the quantities, etc. I'd like to go to the second order and change all of these as well. And when I click the finish button here down at the bottom, I would like all that information to be changed and sent back model bound so I can edit a list inside of ASP.NET MVC2. So returning to the controller, we'll go to the order controller here. I have an action called index. I'm going to create a new customer. Name is Bob Jackson here. And then I'm going to set the customer's orders to a known set of orders. And these orders are order 001 and order 002. I have 3 line items for each. The first one containing chocolate, coffee, and some chrome rims. The second order contains sneakers, an iced out grill piece, and an iPad. And we can see we change the quantities around differently. And then I will go ahead and return the view customer. And it's going to return the index view inside of the order folder of the views. So let's look at the index here. And here's where we start building the editable list. Now what we need to do in order to create an editable list is to loop over the strongly typed model and use an iterative loop. And I'm doing that right here. So we're inheriting right here from the view page, and our model is of type editor demo. And if we scroll over a little further, we can see that we are in fact using a customer as our view model. Returning here, we can see now that we are going to be using the orders for the first name, which is a text box, and a last name. Notice something here. We are now using the strongly typed expression-based helpers, html.textbox4, etc. At this point, we're just outputting basic information about the user's first and last name. This will build a text box, give it the name of first name, give it the on the side over here, create another text box for the last name, and give it the name of last name. And then down below here, we're going to create an iterative loop. And what we're going to do is for each order, we're going to increment, and then we're going to call editor 4. Editor 4 is a new HTML extension. It is a strongly typed extension, and we can pass in a list of orders right here and index it based upon the I variable. Please note, this syntax is strictly so we can get the HTML ID names, the IDs and the names inside of the HTML to line up accordingly. I'll show you an example of that shortly. What we're going to tell the editor 4 is, when you do render an order, I want you to go ahead and use the template called order row. Editor 4 stores templates inside of the shared directory for the views inside of ASP.MVC, or it will share it inside of the current views folder inside of editor templates. Let's take a look at that. Currently I'm storing editor templates, which is we have order row, which we are just looking at, inside of editor templates inside of my orders view folder. These editor templates are only restricted to the views within inside of the order folder. No one else can access these. I also have another one here called line item row, which we'll get to. So what's happening is the index is looping through all the orders, and for each order we're going to render it using the order row ASCX. This allows us to create a customized output for the order itself. Let's go to the order. We are now inside of order row. Order row is a view that inherits a view user control, which is strongly typed to the type of order, as we can see here. And for each order that's rendered, what we're going to do is output the order number, and then we're going to loop through again all of the line items, and using an iterative loop again, we're going to use the editor for, and we're going to use the line item row template. This says for each line item, I would like to use the line item row template to render what each line item should look like on the screen. If we open up the line item row, we have a strongly typed view user control of type line item, and we are simply outputting the name, the price through the text box force, etc. down the line. Please note, everywhere that we are rendering output to the screen, we are using the strongly typed expression-based helpers. The reason for this is MVC underneath the hood will look at these expression-based helpers, notice that it's within inside of an incremental loop, and will assign IDs and name values to the output HTML. If we return back to the page, this is what the page looks like when it's rendered. So if we refresh it, we can see. Now if we were to fire up Firebug and look at the HTML field values, we could look at chocolate here. We could see that chocolate right here has an ID of orders 0, line item 0 name. Using the strongly typed expression-based helpers and the editor templates with the incremental loops, MVC was able to determine where it was at within inside of the object graph and generate the ID accordingly. You could see over here it's generated a name as well. The name has brackets where the ID does not have brackets. Now as we go down the line, we'll see that we have order 0, and now we have line item 0, and now we have the line item 1, the name, and now we're using a coffee, etc. And when we move down further down the line, we will see that for each line item things are getting printed off. Moving further down the line, we can go to the second set of inputs, and we'll look at those IDs. Now we're on the first order. Being that the orders are 0 based, that's why we see orders 1. Now we're on the second order on the second line item. The second order, and then with second order third line item. And we are outputting the values accordingly. What this will allow us to do is when we click the finish button after we edit these values, MVC will use the default model binder. It will recognize all of these attribute types and values, bind them back to the object graph, and then bind all the values that we edited into those values into the object that we have. So let's take a look at the order controller and look at the save. The save action takes in a customer. So what's going to happen is when we click the finish button, it's going to go to the save action and it's going to try to post a customer. The customer itself is comprised of a customer, an order, actually a list of orders, and each order is comprised of a list of line items. Each line item and its information will be rendered to the screen, and since we're inside of the incremental loop, it will display the information with the IDs and names as we expect. So the best way to see this is, let's set a breakpoint, fire the app up, and then we can take a look at it here and refresh it. So we have all of our values in here. We'll just refresh to load everything fresh, close out Firebug, and I'm going to change this chocolate to strawberry. I'm going to change the price to $10.99. I'm going to want 20 of them. I'm going to change coffee to tea. We'll change the price to $1.99. I want 100 of those teas. Chrome rims, I don't like those anymore, so I want some Dayton's. And those Dayton's will be $4.99 a piece, and I want 4 of them. Sneakers, let's just call them Nikes, and they're going to be $109. And I want 2 pairs. Iced out grill piece, let's change that to just a grill, and that will be $1,000. just want one of them, iPad, and I decided that instead I'm going to go with an Android, and that will be $100, and I want 45 of them. And I'm going to change the order names to be Donn Felker. And when we originally rendered this was completely different. So now when we click Finished, MVC will use the default model binder, bind everything up for us, and all these values will be present. So we hit Finished. We now hit our breakpoint. If we look at our customer object here, we can see that we see our customer object here. We can see that we have Donn Felker, and we expound into the orders. We see the first order. We have 3 line items. The first line item is strawberry, $10.99. We want 20 of them. Second is tea, $1.99. We want 100. Third is Dayton's, $4.99, 4. So we changed all these. These are valid. Let's go to the second order. Again, 3 line items. And we can see Nike's, $109. Grill, $1,000. And Android, $100. So at this point in time, I have now recreated an entire object graph. I haven't had to implement any custom model binders. I've used everything out of the box from MVC2. The main key important thing to know is to use the strongly typed HTML helpers and the editors themselves. You also have the option to use display fors and editor fors. However, we're just using editor templates at this point in time. And until next time, thank you.